Stop recording.
Good afternoon, everyone! Happy Thursday, guys! Today it's May 28th, 2026. Time is almost 4 o'clock p.m., guys. I welcome everyone to our afternoon reflection. So, I start this reflection, guys, with a curiosity about basically how speed limits work in terms of driving. So, what I've learned from experience and research is we're talking specifically about New York City. So in New York City specifically, the permitted speed is around 25 miles per hour for normal vehicles that drive on the city. And that includes Manhattan, the Bronx, Brooklyn, Queens, and Staten Island. Basically all boroughs. So in the state though, in areas like Yonkers or Central Park Avenue, the average speed is usually higher, around like 35 or 40 miles per hour. In some areas it can be 20, especially like in residential areas, I think. So 25 miles per hour sounds pretty fast, because then I automatically imagine, imagine if like a human can walk 25 miles per hour. That would be crazy. That would be extremely fast. They would instantly get hurt. Unless they're extreme Olympians or some sort of athlete that can go that speed. Technically, no human could survive walking at 25 miles per hour like a normal car would when it's driving. Because a car can go up to like 100 miles per hour, the highest, I think. Well, I've heard drivers driving even up to 130 miles per hour and got caught by the police. So there was a video that I heard a couple years ago, of a 17-year-old driver that drove 128 miles per hour, and he got caught by the police. So it was a boy. It was a 17-year-old. I think he was under the influence. I don't remember the exact scenario, but driving that high, no.
Pause. Stop recording.
Nobody should do that. Not even in
Double
New
dash
York
tab to
City,
activate
not even in the
area.
U.S. Unless it is a car race or some special event that might involve driving at 128 miles per hour or higher. But not in the U.S. Not even in New York. Because first of all, driving fast like that, guys, can cause people nearby to get hurt from the high speed. So, to keep everyone safe, New York City apparently decide that cars or buses or any vehicle in the city, delivery trucks, should drive at an average speed of 25 miles per hour, although speed signs can alter depending on where you are. Like, for instance, in a school area, cars, buses are allowed to drive at lower speed limits, like 15 or 20 miles per hour. Now, there is an exception. In my school where I am, guys, apparently they only allow drivers to drive at a speed of 5 miles per hour. That's because my school is a blind and visually impaired school. So to protect children or anybody who is visually impaired, they have to drive slow because, God forbid, a driver drives at 25 miles per hour and a student does not see it. In order for them to react immediately, they have to see the car before it comes. So if they didn't see it, they would get instantly hurt if they didn't see the car. That's why 5 miles per hour allows students to kind of sense that a car is coming without like the immediate rush of, car sounds before they get hit. So, yeah, 5 miles per hour sounds kind of unfair to some drivers, but it's the rule, especially for other public schools might have those rules. Well, my school, guys, is a campus. That makes things even more tricky because campuses have they have buildings surrounding them. They have trees. They have short pathways where cars are allowed to go. The street, despite there might be some instances where a disabled person might walk on the street, but on the street is different because it's more generalized for the public. So apparently, 25 miles per hour is the standard speed for drivers. Now, what we want to avoid, guys, is sometimes drivers recklessly drive at speeds above 25 miles per hour. Like, for instance, they might drive at 40 or 50 miles per hour on the city street, and they're not supposed to do that because that's illegal. That's over the speed limit. They can get a ticket for that. So they do that when they're in a hurry or when they want to prove their power, something like that. But what matters most is safety, not competition while driving. That's what I'm going to say. So now this curiosity has brought me a question in my mind. How can I, since I don't drive and since I'm totally blind and I'm 15, and so since I'm curious about this, I might want to maybe install an app on my phone, possibly Google Maps. And let's say I'm in a taxi and a driver is driving in the front seat. I could track how many miles per hour is a driver speeding. So, I'm doing it for curiosity. Because I want to know what are certain areas that have lower or higher speed limits than others. Because my school, for instance, has 5 miles per hour. A normal New York City street, and I think in the U.S. also, in the United States, the permitted speed is 25 miles per hour. But maybe in the countryside is higher because of there's more open areas and stuff. But that doesn't really meet with the ADA standards. But still, 40 miles per hour on a countryside is probably fine, in a highway. For example, in Central Park Avenue in Yonkers, there are some areas that have higher restrictions, higher speed limits. Some areas can go exceed 45 or 50 miles per hour, or a maximum probably of 45. I don't know if cars go higher than that, but in areas in the Bronx like Jerome Avenue, it's 25 miles per hour. Although there are exceptions because, as I said, some areas might experience a lower speed limit due to several factors like school buildings, or some residential areas might allow only a certain speed. So you might have noticed that during heavy traffic, a driver goes slower, maybe at 5 or 10 miles per hour, or sometimes even lower than 5, depending on how heavy the traffic is. An example is Manhattan, because in areas like Times Square, you don't hear cars zooming by fast at 25 miles per hour, the way you hear it in the Bronx or in quiet residential areas. But in areas like Times Square or 68th Street, Hunters College, whatever, where it's busy, and especially with tourists, they have to go slower because there are more cars in front of them and behind them, and they got to be careful. So they usually might drive around 5 or 10 miles per hour, whatever. But if the area is clear enough, and if they know that a car is not ahead of them, then it can drive safely at 20 or at near 25 miles per hour, depending. Yeah. Matter of fact, guys, I am recording in my living room, and since we're talking about driving and speeds, I'm going to type the Windows key, and I'm going to type speed. S-P-E-E-D. EAD. Enter. Even though there's no app named Speed, I'm just doing it to play.
Opening Dash Excel. Please wait. Dash Excel. Sheet 1. Empty
Yeah.
blank.
Let me press Windows D. I was just playing around. So, the reason why I typed Speed because I just wanted to play around. That's all. But now, if somehow in the future there was an app that you can control a car speed using your own voice or using some sort of command on the computer, that would be crazy. Not just crazy, that would be beneficial because I think in some areas they are already thinking of ways to make driving accessible for blind individuals because currently people have to have certain amount of vision to drive. And apparently I was surprised because one of my teachers in my school is partially blind and she could drive. So I'm surprised. Because I thought in the first place that a totally sighted person can drive only. Because, a street can be unpredictable, especially in a New York City street. And it is important to have like a certain amount of vision, I think, to act if a car is trying to go on the way or something like that. So, well, matter of fact, I'm gonna type 25 mph.
Home button, comma, window navigation.
2
Double dash tab to activate
5
MPH.
mph.
25 miles per hour to kmh. See more search results.
Yeah, whatever. I'm gonna type Windows D. I was just playing around.
Desktop.
25 mph. Yeah. Again, I'm just typing this to play around. Just to kind of bring a little bit of humor to our reflection. So yeah. Now, here's my other question though. And I would recommend you guys to comment me below if you guys know about driving. If the speed limit is 25 miles per hour, and if a driver decides to drive at only at only 1 mile per hour instead of 25, what would happen? What would happen if a driver only drove 1 mile per hour for fun instead of like 25? So okay, guys. I'm gonna pause this for a moment because apparently my brother's just
3 cents button. No next heading.